Knowing the unwritten rules of a game can literally make or break your experience. And the unwritten rules are always different depending on the game you're playing. Like, you're not going to talk to someone the same way in Call of Duty as you do in Animal Crossing. And of course, Final Fantasy XIV has unwritten rules of its own. So if you're new to MMOs in general, if you're a WoW refugee, or if you're coming over from another MMO, you might experience a little bit of culture shock, and it can be a little confusing to know what the expectations actually are. So, without further ado, here are the unwritten rules in Final Fantasy XIV that new players need to know. Live in the world and realize you're not alone. Remember that you're playing an MMO when you play Final Fantasy XIV. If you're a WoW refugee like me, you might have actually forgotten that communities exist and what that's like, because I definitely did. So say hello when entering a new dungeon or joining a new party. You never know what you're gonna miss if you don't engage with your group. You could learn about a mechanic that would have otherwise killed you, met a new friend, or just had an interesting conversation. Coming to Final Fantasy XIV as a WoW refugee was a pretty big shift as far as the community is concerned. People in Final Fantasy are extremely interactive in comparison. Just keep that in mind as you start your journey as a new Final Fantasy XIV player. Ask questions, no questions asked. One thing that I've noticed is that people are just so gosh darn nice in this game. I don't understand. It's such a wild concept from me, but people are just nice. If someone sees you struggling with a quest mob or dying to a dungeon mechanic, people are there to help you. If you have a question, ask. If you need help, ask. You probably won't get trolled in response like you definitely would in World of Warcraft. People are generally so helpful, so if you see someone struggling, take a minute to help them out. It can really go a long way to improve someone's gaming experience, and who knows, maybe you will need them to help you with something one day. Mods and the gray zone. Coming from World of Warcraft, it's very difficult to imagine going long without a DPS meter or my UI and quality of life add-ons. But for the most part, as a new player, you don't need any mods at all. Most things you might be used to having are built into the game by default. You just have to spend a minute tinkering around and exploring, and it's probably there somewhere. But most of all, using mods is against terms of service. Yoshi P, the director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV, released a statement in 2020 stating the following. Well, first of all, this goes without saying, and it's also often addressed. The use of external tools is prohibited, and this is what's written in the terms of service. And so if in the case that you ask us if it's okay to use external tools, our reply will always be no. In the worst case scenario, there's a possibility that your account will be suspended. Yoshida has explained that the reasons for mods being against terms of service is primarily to prevent harassment and the creation of illegal screenshots and content that would impede on Japan's adult content laws. This would put the business in jeopardy. It seems very much like it's intended to protect the players as well as the game and maintain a friendly atmosphere for new or casual players. The gray line exists because Final Fantasy cannot detect what's running on your computer. I'm not going to tell you to go ahead and ignore Yoshida's advice, but the general rule to keep yourself safe, according to the community, is if you do use external tools like a TPS meter, don't ever talk about it in-game or discuss the information you get from it in-game, especially not to harass another player, or you could risk a suspension or ban. But what about dungeons? Dungeon etiquette can be a bit much, and most of it you'll pick up over time, but here's a few tips to get you started. If you're playing a tank in Final Fantasy XIV, it is extremely important to stay as still as much as you can. Pick a spot and stick to it. Some jobs require you to stand in a specific spot to do the maximum amount of damage, and that can get really hard to maintain if the tank is constantly moving the boss. It's totally normal to make a ton of adjustments when you're playing a game like World of Warcraft, so us WoW refugees have to remember that it's not the same game, and there are some habits we're gonna have to break, including butt wiggling with your strafe keys. Use common courtesy. If you're a tank and the healer is having problems keeping up, slow down. If you're a DPS and pull something by accident, just run it to the tank. If you're in a party with a sprout doing MSQ, wait for them to finish their cutscenes. If you see the healer struggling and you have some healing abilities, use them. Remember that the things that you do can either impede or improve your party members' playing experience. Keep Limit Break on your bar. Limit Break is essentially a party-wide cooldown. The effect it has depends on the role of the person who uses it, so if you're a tank, it'll help you survive. If you're a DPS, you'll do a big burst of damage, but don't use Limit Break unless you either know what you're doing or you are asked specifically for it by someone who knows what they're doing. The cooldown is shared across your entire group, so be careful not to waste it or use it without understanding how it should be used in a specific encounter. Always say thank you for the group when you're finished, and give out commendations to players that were helpful or just made it a pleasurable experience for you. Rewarding players for their kindness or even just a simple thank you for their time goes a long way. I hope you guys got something out of this video. If you have any more unwritten rules of Final Fantasy XIV that you think new players would benefit from, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Logging off.